Hey everyone, how's it going? You're watching Ricky's Realm of Colour. Today I'm going to show you how I painted grinkrak'slooncourt for the Warhammer Underworlds game. Face coated them all Chaos Black. As you can see, some of it hasn't covered. There's a bit of green showing through. So I'm going to cover that some black. Don't worry about underneath the base because you won't see that. I'm going to use my Army Painter wet palette, and something I wanted to show off that my wife brought me for Christmas is this collapsible water pot from Faber-Castell. I think that's how you call them. So you can close it like this so it's easy to transport, or if you don't need a little water, put it out for more water. And you can also put your brushes on top of it with the little handy ridges shown here using this Artisapes brush. I've chosen this little guy. It's quite good because it's got a lot of different textures that can be across all the models. So you've got the skin, the armour, you've got a bit of wood and all the fabric, metals, squig on there, even mushrooms on the base as well. So all the different textures that you get across all the models is on this one miniature. So this is what I'm going to be showing off how I paint it all. I'm going to be starting off with the skin. So this is going to be a 30-70 mix of Vulcan green and Elysian green. I'm going to do a highlight of Elysian green, followed by another highlight of Goblin camo, and final fine highlights of flayed one flesh. And I'm going to be using this size 1 Winsor & Newton brush to apply my base coat, and each one a nice even coverage of the mix. Now you don't have to worry about being too neat at this point because you can just go over with a bit of black wherever you've messed up. I like to go as neat as possible now. It saves a bit of time later when you're having to clean up the model to paint the other parts. With the hands here, I was a bit lazy, saying about trying to be as neat as possible for this stage. I filled in the gaps between the hands. You can do this if you want, or if you're feeling like being a bit neater, you can just leave the black showing through in between the fingers. It adds a bit of extra shadow. But unfortunately, I was just being a bit lazy in this one. But it's not a problem. You go back later with a dark colour and just like a wash or something and put it between fingers. And here we go. This is the green finish for the base coat after a couple of coats. So now, using my size 00 Winsor & Newton brush, I'm going to do the first highlight of Elysian green. I'm going to be concentrating on the higher areas. So here you can see doing the face, I'm concentrating more on the top of the bridge, the nose, and around the cheeks. Also, when doing the skin, don't forget to do the ears. Sometimes where they pop through the hoods, they can be missed. First highlight done, you can see we're adding a little bit of definition to the skin, picking out some of the details, but now we're going to heighten those highlights. So again, with our size 00 Winsor & Newton brush, I'm going to use Goblin camo, I think it was, and we're just going to really start pushing those highlights now, make some of the details pop, and that will be followed with the flayed one flesh after. For this final highlight, we're going to use my size 0 Artisapes brush. It's got a nice point for it, so I really enjoy doing my final highlights with this brush. There's no need to go too crazy when applying this. It's just really picking out just very lightest areas where the light's going to be reflecting off the skin, such as like the tip of the nose, cheeks, top of the ears, and knuckles, etc. So I'm super happy with how this turned out. I really like it, and you can easily leave it here if you want to. But I'm going to push the skin a little bit further by adding some yellow glazes to it using this Yuri yellow. And after this I'm going to follow it with some watered down corn red, and I'm going to add that to like certain areas just to make the colours pop. The yellow is going to make the skin a bit more interesting, and the red's just going to add a bit of extra colour to it, which will be on the nose and the knuckles. And this is what it looks like when it's finished. I'm really happy with how the skin's turned out. Next up, we're going to be painting the robes, which I'm going to be doing in a dark grey. And just quickly, while I've got the red out, I'm going to be doing a little bit of red dot on the eyes, and a little bit of yellow mixed in just to add a bit of reflective light to them. So onto the robes, I'm going to be starting off with Corvus Black. This is going to be applied mostly over, then Mechanica Standard Grey for first highlight, Astromonicon Grey for the next final highlight. The Corvus Black I'm going to apply over most of it, just leaving a little bit of the Chaos Black showing through. And then, as usual, we're going to add our highlights, just concentrating more on the edges. You don't have to go too crazy when painting the cloth, because I imagine this, like Goblin's cloth, it's not going to be super reflective, so I didn't want to push the highlights too much. With this paint job, I'm looking for going a bit more of a messier side to it instead of the clean heavy metal style. So I'm really concentrating really high up on more highlights and keeping the underside as dark as possible instead of edge highlighting and everything, which of course there's nothing wrong with that. That is actually how I normally paint, but I thought I'd go for something a little different this time. The grey did turn out a little lighter than I wanted it to, so I've just grabbed some Chaos Black, done it into a glaze consistency, and I'm going to glaze that into the recesses and just blend it back in a bit just to darken it. Next up, I'm going to paint yellow armour. I'm going to start with Avalanche Sunset, and then we're going to do a first shade of Scrag Brown, and then a following shade of Mournfang Brown, and then the highlight's going to be Yuri Yellow, followed by Dawn Yellow. I've thinned it down quite a bit to give it a nice smooth coat. You will need probably about 3 or 4 coats to get really good coverage, as this paint's quite thin over black, but it gives it a nice solid coat of, base coat of yellow once it's done. And as you can see here, it's fairly patchy. This was just one coat, so I'm going to put a few more coats over it and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. And as you can see, afterwards I've got a strong solid base coat of yellow. So we're going to move on to the shading now. Using my Scrag Brown, I've watered it down quite a bit to do a really thin glaze, and I'm going to build it up over a couple of layers. If you do it too thick, you'll get a very nice blend to it, which is the effect I'm aiming for right here. So here we are, just the Scrag Brown shading, and now I'm going to move on to the Mournfang Brown. Now once again, I've thinned this down into a nice glaze consistency, but I'm going to concentrate a bit further into the shadows and the lower areas, leaving some of the Scrag Brown showing through, and also concentrating around all the rivets to make them pop out a bit more. After the brown shading, I went back with the Avalanche Sunset, just to clean up some areas where I went a bit mad with the brown and the shading. And then follow on with Uriel Yellow to do the first highlights. Now, this was fairly thin, it was kind of medium glaze consistency, a bit thicker than I normally would, because it's quite a vibrant yellow, and I didn't want to go too crazy with it, otherwise your armour will be really, really bright. I followed on with a highlight of Dawn Yellow. I used my Artis Opus Zero brush again, and this was just going around all the edging. It's kind of more traditional edge highlighting, I'd say, that Heavy Metal does, but I did put in some scratches and also dotted the rivets with this. Eventually, I'm not sure if it's going to be in this video or that will show up on the next video. With the Dawn Yellow finished, I'm really happy with how it's shown up, but to finish it off, I'm going to add a bit of depth to some of the scratches using some Warm Fang Brown. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy with this, as I don't want to overpower it with deep scratches, and I wanted to leave a few lighter scratches on there as well, just to show different variants of depth to them. I also went around a bit of some of the edges where I'd done a thick highlight, just to show you where there's some paint chipping off his armour. And with that, the yellow armour is done, and that brings us to the end of this video. In the next video, which will be coming out in a week or two, I'll be going over how I do the armour in non-metallic metal silver, which will have kind of cave-ish reflections, so it'll be kind of a bluish tinge to it, or turquoisey tinge to it. And then the videos after that, I'll be going over how I paint in the squig, and also how I do the bases. So please keep your eyes out for them. Thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate you all very, very much. I'm saying very, very a lot, but I really do appreciate everyone watching. I'll see you next time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos so you don't miss out any future ones. Thank you guys. Goodbye.